Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to tell you a story that completely changed the way I think about failure, about rejection, and about what it really means to start over. This is the story of Steve Jobs, and I promise you, by the end of this, you're going to see your own struggles in a completely different light. So picture this. It's 1985. Steve Jobs is 30 years old. He's the co-founder of Apple, one of the most valuable companies in the world at that time. He's a millionaire. He's famous. He's got everything going for him. And then, in one of the most shocking business moves ever, he gets fired. Not just demoted, not just pushed aside. Fired. From his own company. The company he built in his parents' garage. The company he named. Can you imagine that feeling? Now, before we go any further, I want you to think about something. Have you ever been rejected? Have you ever felt like you gave everything to something and it still wasn't enough? Maybe you lost a job. Maybe a relationship ended. Maybe you failed at something you really cared about. Hold on to that feeling, because what I'm about to share with you is going to hit different. So Steve Jobs didn't just lose his job that day. He lost his identity. Apple was his baby. It was everything to him. And suddenly, he's out. The board of directors, the people he hired, they sided with someone else. They told him they didn't need him anymore. He said later that it felt like someone punched him in the stomach. For months, he thought about leaving Silicon Valley entirely. He felt like he'd let down the previous generation of entrepreneurs. He felt like he dropped the baton. But here's where the story gets interesting. Instead of giving up, instead of becoming bitter, Steve did something that most people don't have the courage to do. He started over. From scratch. At 30 years old, after being on top of the world, he went back to being a beginner. He founded a new company called Next. He bought a small animation studio that would later become Pixar. Yeah, that Pixar. The one that made Toy Story, Finding Nemo, all those incredible movies. And listen to what he said years later about this time in his life. He said getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to him. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. It freed him to enter one of the most creative periods of his life. Think about that for a second. The worst moment of his professional life became the doorway to his greatest achievements. Not because the failure was good, but because of how he responded to it. He didn't let rejection define him. He let it redirect him. Now I know what some of you might be thinking. That's easy to say when you're Steve Jobs. That's easy to say when you're talented and you have resources. But here's the thing. When he started Next and Pixar, nobody knew if they would succeed. Next actually struggled for years. It wasn't an instant success story. But Steve kept going. He kept creating. He kept believing that he had something valuable to offer the world, even when the world had just told him no. And this is where we can learn some powerful English vocabulary that actually matters in real life. When Steve talks about this period, he uses the word devastated. That's a strong word. It means completely destroyed emotionally. Not just sad, devastated. He also talks about being liberated, which means set free. So in the same experience, he found both devastation and liberation. Both can be true at the same time. He also uses the phrase beginner's mind. This is a beautiful concept. IT means approaching something with openness and curiosity, without all the baggage of what you think you already know. When you're forced to start over, you can either be bitter about what you lost, or you can embrace that beginner's mind and be curious about what's possible. Fast forward to 1997. Apple is struggling. They're close to bankruptcy. And guess who they bring back to save the company? Steve Jobs, the guy they fired 12 years earlier. And when he comes back, he brings everything he learned at Next and Pixar. He brings a new perspective. He brings humility mixed with confidence. And over the next decade, He transforms Apple into the most valuable company in the world. The iPhone, the iPad, the MacBook you might be watching this on right now. All of that came from post-rejection Steve Jobs. Here's what I want you to understand. The Steve Jobs who got fired in 1985 could never have created the iPhone. He wasn't ready yet. He was talented, sure, but he was also arrogant. He was difficult to work with. He needed to be humbled. He needed to fail. He needed to learn what really mattered. And all of that happened during those 12 years in the wilderness. So when you face rejection, when something doesn't work out the way you planned, you have a choice. You can see it as the end of your story, or you can see it as the plot twist that makes your story interesting. Every great story has a moment where the hero loses everything. That's not a bug, that's a feature. That's where the transformation happens. And let me tell you something else Steve said that really stuck with me. He said you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. When he was fired, he couldn't see how it would lead to Pixar and then back to Apple. But looking back, every single piece had to happen exactly the way it did. This applies to your English learning journey too. Maybe you've been studying for months and you still don't feel fluent. Maybe you make mistakes and feel embarrassed. Maybe you wonder if you'll ever really get there. But every conversation you have, even the awkward ones, every mistake you make, every word you look up, those are all dots. And one day you'll look back and see how they all connected to make you the confident English speaker you want to be. Steve Jobs also taught us about the power of staying hungry and staying foolish. Those were his famous words. Stay hungry means keep wanting more, keep striving, don't get comfortable. Stay foolish means don't be afraid to take risks, to try things that might not work, to look silly. The opposite of foolish isn't wise, it's paralyzed by fear. So here's my challenge for you today. Whatever rejection you're facing, whatever failure you're dealing with, whatever dream seems dead right now, I want you to ask yourself this question. What if this isn't the end? What if this is the plot twist? What if being fired, being rejected, being told no, what if that's the thing that forces you to discover what you're really capable of? Because here's the truth that nobody likes to talk about. Sometimes we need to lose the thing we think we want in order to find the thing we actually need. Steve thought he needed Apple in 1985. What he actually needed was to grow up, to mature, to develop depth and wisdom. And the only way to get that was to lose Apple first. Your English journey is the same way. Maybe you think you need to be perfect right now. What you actually need is to make 1,000 mistakes so you can learn. Maybe you think you need to understand everything. What you actually need is to be confused enough times that you develop the courage to ask questions. Maybe you think you need to sound like a native speaker tomorrow. What you actually need is to fall in love with the process of learning, with the journey of becoming. Steve Jobs died in 2011, way too young. But before he died, he created products that changed the world. He built a company that's still leading innovation today. And more importantly, he showed us that rejection doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can be the beginning of your best chapter. So the next time someone tells you no, the next time something doesn't work out, the next time you feel like giving up, remember this story. Remember that somewhere out there is a future version of you that's going to look back at this moment and say, "Thank God that happened. Thank God I didn't give up. That rejection was exactly what I needed to become who I am now." Stay hungry, stay foolish, and keep learning. I'll see you in the next video.